Hey there, and welcome back to season 3 of Casting Workbooks, The Working Actor. I'm so delighted to be back with you guys each and every week as we tune in from around the world with casting directors who are helping actors improve their talent. And especially with what's been going on with the pandemic, a lot of actors have been working from home. And with more artists working from home, the world of voiceover is booming and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. So today on The Working Actor, we are joined with one of the top casting directors who are responsible for making actors sound incredible with voice work. I'm so pleased to introduce each and every one of you today and to be joined by casting director Jean Vasilatos here on The Working Actor with season 3 of Casting Workbook. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. So I've always been intrigued by voice work, obviously, and I'm always intrigued on how well casting directors pick the perfect voice to go with the characters that you see on the screen. So how did the world of casting fall into your lap, and what was it about voice work that you were really good at?
Sure. I got into casting. I went to school for theater. And then by the time I got out of school, I realized I didn't want to do that. So I started casting actually in live action and independent features. I had an internship with Mary Vernew, and then I met Monica Mickelson, and we strung 5 years of little $1 million movies together, which was just super fun. And then in 2009, there was a job that came up at Nickelodeon. And I had always loved animation. So I jumped at the chance to work over at Nick with Sarah Noonan, and we just cast all of the stunt casting for the cartoons and all the pilots and shorts and development materials and movies of the week and stuff like that, all in the animation job for Nickelodeon Animation. And so that's how I fell into the animation part of casting in general. And as far as what really shines in terms of voiceover specifically, I think it's a love for the medium is part of it. I do love watching animation, and I never grew out of it as a child, into adulthood, still watch cartoons and anime and adult animation, all that kind of thing. But also, video games and playing and watching a lot of video game work, because there's a ton of voiceover in that. And so I just think being familiar with the medium helped me kind of fall into the voiceover section of casting.
Yeah, very interesting. 15-year veteran of the casting industry. You started independent film working on projects like Rob Zombie's Halloween reboots, and then you moved to animation, becoming the VP of Nickelodeon Animation. I'm wondering, how fun was your job at Nickelodeon? Because it's got to be something different every day, and working in animation, especially for such a huge, empire like Nickelodeon, that had to be never a dull moment at work.
Yeah, and I think everybody there recognized that they're making cartoons, and when you realize that, especially because cartoons, an episode takes so long to create, that takes a little bit of that crazy immediacy of film. We got to get it done right now, and it's the most important thing in the world. You don't have that kind of scary feeling because we got to get it done within the next 3 months. And so because the whole process is protracted, people have a much more sane view of the whole process. And then also, really, in auditioning for cartoons for Nick, we were just watching comedians try hard, which was just great. A good way to say what I did for a living at Nick was just watch comedians and wait until I laughed. And that's when you would know, you're like, oh, there's something interesting there, because I thought it was funny after listening to it 30 times, and you made it funny. So it must be good. So, which was the exact opposite of the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, where you just were calling in actor after actor to do a death scene in front of you and waiting to get scared. So
right.
The comedy side is a little easier on the soul.
So I'm wondering, what comes first? Is it the actual animation, or is it the voiceover that you start with?
It depends. Sometimes, a lot of times, if the show is script driven, i.e. they write the script first and then the actors get a hold of it, and then they record what would be called radio play, which would be just the audio. And then that's given to animators to kind of create the pictures with the inspiration of the audio. Some cartoons are done that way. Some are done where there's it's called board driven, where like a storyboard in animatic is put together, and then all the jokes are found visually, and then the actors kind of they're a little more set, and they have to find the comedy within that. And then there's the third type, which is dubbing, which a lot of Japanese animation, which is already done once, and now you're putting the English in. They're a fully completed cartoon, and then you have no choice but to fit the timing and the mouth and the emotion that's already on the character. So it's done one of many different ways.
I'm always fascinated by this because I wonder, when you're going through the auditioning process to find the perfect voice for the characters that you're trying to cast, are you even looking at the actor, or you're just listening, focusing on what you're hearing?
I'm looking at the art, if there is art. If there's a character design, I'm looking at the character design and like making sure my eye and my ear agree, right? If there's not, there's a little more freedom. But yeah, looking at the actor is a little bit of a trap, because they may be doing some really interesting stuff visually that's never going to come through on the microphone.
Right, yeah. Right. So what's it like casting characters for a younger audience?
Oh, sure. I think you have to get into the immature part of what you found funny when you were young, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And then it's also, villains are different for kids.
Yeah.
Right? Because a villain for an adult audience, and okay, a villain for a kid's audience, how do I put this? Okay.
You can put it any way you want.
Yeah.
That's uncensored.
Right. A villain for a kid's audience, you need to be able to really know they're a villain early on. Even if there's a misdirect in the beginning of the episode or the beginning of the series or something like that, having someone be a good guy and not know why they tick evil is something that adults sometimes find interesting, and going like, oh, how did he go? Kids kind of want to create their little archetypes. And even if that archetype is like a villain who thinks they're a hero for a good cause, or like a villain that is tortured and isn't a bad guy, he's very damaged. Mm-hmm. I really got to feel that early on, so kid knows how to get on that path and follow the story. If you have like, oh, we're going to write him like a good guy for 3 episodes and then he's going to turn, kids are sometimes resistant to that. And they're sometimes resistant because they've now invested in this person as a good guy, and they don't want the stress of going like, but that was the good guy. I was thinking wrong. I was this, I was that. Just get into the archetype a little sooner on.
Right.
And then for kids, farts are funny. So like, there you go. It's like, and they're funny for adults too, but like we kind of button ourselves up. So you got to kind of unbutton your comedy and let that dumb funny be okay.
So how easy is it for an actor to transition and be a really good voiceover actor?
I think it's not, a lot of people think it's about vocal variation and like, I can do 1,000 different voices. It's not that. It's the acting work is actually like the basis for it is the same as live action. It's truth, right? It's all of those things you do to get out of your own way and tell the truth, someone else's truth that's been written, right? And so the only stumbling block for a good live action actor is the fact that they have spent their entire life with a camera in their face right here. And so all of the choices are super, super subtle. And so they have to just open up those choices and chew the scenery a little bit more, maybe be more of a ham, but as long as it stays honest, you have a leg up over people who think that it needs to be approached by like having a repertoire of 20 different voices. If you're not honest, it doesn't matter. So it's all about the honesty and just opening it up and being a little more broad.
Yeah. So where does one begin? I mean, the working actor is obviously to help actors who are tuning in so that they can gain some insight from top casting directors like yourself, who are obviously specialized in voice work. So how can an actor or a voiceover actor become better at their skill?
I mean, well, you should never stop learning and taking classes. And there are classes for voiceover technique. I would think they are as important, but not more important than the regular like acting classes that, and workshops and doing theater or doing whatever to exercise those muscles. But there are, classes in technique. There are classes that end with a demo reel. Those are all fine and good. If you also have your basis of acting. I would also say like getting that the like free independent film promo pro bono work to cut your teeth and build your resume. I think those are found like in student films. And there are people who do independent animated films. And you could also look on, I think it's or something like that, which is your, I don't know, Casting Workbook has a like open to the actor, like a general submission category. But like places like that, auditioning is great practice as well. Yeah. So if you are in the habit of going like, I don't know if I'm right, I'll try, that's great. Start throwing out those auditions. If you start judging and censoring what you can and can't do very early on, you're going to do less auditions, which means you get less practice. It also means you get less accidental hirings and things like that. So just go out and find the auditions that you can do, find the free independent little student films you can do, and just put yourself out there and try some stuff out.
Yeah. And I'm assuming also that a lot of voice work comes with a lot of improv, and you have to be comfortable with, playing around with different voices. So how do you go about choosing the right voice for different characters? Like, how can an actor read a script and know what kind of voice to deliver for what you're looking for?
Hopefully it's in the breakdown. Hopefully there are clues that you can pick up on, and like, the size of a character or how wacky or weird the breakdown is written. The other thing is to just kind of get out of your way and make a bigger choice anyway, because I haven't hired anyone going, well, there's nothing really there, but I'm sure they can get there. I don't hire people that way. I hire people that are like, that was wrong, but that was really interesting. Let's see what else they can do. Or, it's spot on, but and in truth, you can't game the system and try to get a shortcut to what I want, because sometimes I don't know what I want. And even if I know what I want, I don't know if it's what the producers and directors want. So like, it's a jungle of thorns to try to figure out how to win. Yeah. Instead, it's much easier to figure out how to play.
We often hear, oh, that was a really good read, or no, that was a terrible read. So can you give us an example of what maybe a good read would be in your eyes, or in your ears, I should say, versus a bad read?
Sure. It goes back to truth. If I don't believe you, and that's specifically because kids are honest, right? So if a kid doesn't believe you, they'll just stop watching because they don't care, right? I can put on a happy face and be like, that was really good, right? But if a kid's not buying it, because if you're not believing what you say, if you haven't done your work, if a breath isn't a thought, if you haven't figured out why the character's doing a thing, if you don't know your intentions, it's not a good read. If you do the good acting work, great, forget about the rest. Acting work and clarity, right? Make sure I can actually hear what you're saying, because, a lot of mumbling in the world. So, exactly. So do 10 minutes of vocal exercises before you put anything down on tape or before you go into an audition. You will be surprised how much that actually does help you. All that work you did in school and forgot about for 15 years, go do it. Go do it and come back, and your emotions will come out your mouth faster and better, and like everyone will understand what you're saying. And when they say, could you pick up the pace, you'll actually be able to pick up the pace, all those things. So do your work and mean what you say, and then forget about the rest, because the rest you won't be able to game.
Can you take us through, I guess, the audition process? Because when talking with casting directors, they often tell us, oh, I look at so many demo reels and I won't look at 5 minutes of it. I'll probably just look at the first, minute of your demo reel. And if it doesn't interest me, I'm gone. What's the process like for someone who's mainly just focused on what they hear?
Yeah, it's similar. When we put out a breakdown, the first thing will happen is it goes to a service. And then instead of just a headshot, we solicit those, like basically a pre-read. And so it's you sending tape of the audition. And then we will get somewhere between 50 and 200 of those. So the first round through of all of them, I do listen to about the first 20 seconds of every audition. Wow. Just to see what's close. And so I narrow it down to about a third to a fifth of those to know, like, is the age right? Did the first few lines work? Is it what they're hearing? Is it what they're looking for? Does it match the art that I wasn't able to send because everything is super locked down and proprietary? Like, does it fit the category? And then I'll go back and listen to those top selects and narrow that down to like a 5 to 10. And then if it's a recurring character or lead role, we would do auditions nowadays over Zoom.
Yeah.
Right? In person, we'd set up an appointment and then we'd workshop it, go through it a different way, see if you can, take direction and how you take direction, how you make things funny or funnier than they are on the page, and then take it from there. And usually by that time I have showrunners on.
Mm-hmm. My background is in TV and radio, and I remember my program director would always tell me that the first thing you say within the 8 seconds that you're talking is what the audiences are going to decide whether they want to stick with you and listen to you, or they want to, switch the dial or walk away. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I always say the key to not just auditions, but any meeting is excellence and brevity, right? Come in, put your best foot forward, and know when to leave a room, right? Because the longer there's like a graph that you could graph of any meeting where it's just like you have the initial meeting, you put your initial foot forward and everybody likes it. And then someone gives you a lead feedback and like everybody goes down because someone noticed a flaw, and then you address the flaw and you do your second audition. And now that's the best point a meeting can end, right? Because like you've shown you're excellent, you've shown you can change, and just get the heck out of here. And I've seen a lot of people ruin auditions by being like, you're the guy I like. Now I'm gonna hang out with you for 10 minutes and suddenly you're the guy who's annoying. And so, right? And I think that is a knowing when to leave the room, which is usually at the first pause after like, well, and then, that's the key that a casting director is giving an actor a hint to go, is when you should go. Because you want to leave us going like, oh, I like that guy. I want to see more from that guy. Instead of, oh, I like that guy, but he showed me everything. So like, just leave them wanting more.
Leave them wanting more. That's great. Keeping with the theme of auditioning for you, for example, all of us with the pandemic, obviously as actors, everyone invested in a ring light. Everyone had to learn how to, submit auditions by themselves, and they were auditioning, self-tapes, et cetera, et cetera. What should we as voice artists consider or have mandatory here in our surroundings when we're auditioning?
So for the auditions, it's okay for it to be iPhone quality, right?
Oh, really?
If you're in like New York or LA and that's where you're going to be and you're willing to come into the recording studio no matter what. Some people still work that way. If you have any other thing like I would like to record at home, as many of them do now, or I'm not in New York, LA, I'm not near a recording studio, it's going to be a pain, then a lot of people are turning walk-in closets or something like that into a small studio, like getting all the walls padded, getting a nice microphone, getting a nice setup to the computer you already have with a nice piece of software and just a few things, and then probably contacting someone who knows engineering to kind of like help you dial in where the little echo is coming from. It'll sound better than this sound. My room is not, there's walls everywhere. It's all bouncing off and it all sounds all echoey and roomy. So And then there are some actors who are in small spaces who have kits that are just, and I think they sell this pre-made. It's like a 4 foot by 4 foot kind of column of foam and PVC that they Velcro themselves into, and immediately turns to 120 degrees, but they can get their work done, and it's wonderfully quiet. So that's like the I'm saving up my money starter kit. Yeah. But there are tons of people who converted their closet into a little thing. All you don't need to be able to move. You just need, that much space, and then, the iPad and the script in front of you, and you throw on the Zoom and throw on the thing, and you're going.
Yeah. But I'm assuming the quality of the submission should matter whenever you're submitting an audition for voiceover work.
It should be as good sounding as it can be. If someone's willing to come into the studio, it's okay if it's the quietest room in your house, not during rush hour, in a regular room, and it kind of sounds like a good answering machine message for audition only. But you could never record that way, which means if you get the job, you are tied to coming in. You have to come into the studio if you're sending that kind of thing.
Jean, you have won 3 Emmys. One of them was for The Legend of Kora and 2 for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I want to know what it was about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or The Legend of Kora that you think really resonated with audiences and was so successful, and why it was so successful.
I don't think in either of those projects, even though we did, and it wasn't me, it was a whole team, we won the Emmy for those things. I think we stood on the shoulders of giants in that Legend of Kora was a gorgeously animated, really well-written thing. And all we did was serve the animators and playwrights in such a way that we just did our best to live up to what was already being created. And I think so basically that one was a participation award for not failing. And then Turtles was just so fun. And Turtles has such a voracious built-in audience that truthfully, we and the rest of the production, all we did was we didn't betray their trust, right? They wanted something awesome. We did our best to get something awesome. The cast on that was super fun. We had Sean Astin, we had Jason Biggs, and then Seth Green. We had a lot of really fun people working really hard to make it something that the fans would love. And then we always had to keep those fans in mind the whole way through. And so that's the way.
So how much input from the creator is there when casting for characters that are already in the public eye?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, there was a lot of focus on Turtles because it already existed.
Yeah.
And, it had several iterations. And so we were really trying to find what was important. So there were 3 showrunners at the time, and then the network. And they all had, you could show a Venn diagram of what the creators wanted and then what the network wanted. And then we threw darts at that little sliver of what was the same. And one of the things that was the same was it just came down to brotherhood, right? And finding 4 people who really sounded like they've been brothers their whole lives. And sorry, there's a vacuum cleaner. 1 second.
No problem. This is real life. It's all part of it's the sound of the vacuum.
There we go. So for that one, and we actually did 2 iterations of Turtles at Nick. The first one was just brotherhood and that. The second one, we really just, the rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we really wanted to kind of reinvent. So we took the core elements of those turtles and the characters, and then we just found really odd, funny people and did it in such a way. There was there's such a focus on diversity and inclusion right now. We made the most diverse and inclusive version of Turtles that we could. And it really turned out great. And the writing on that was so different that they really wanted on-camera people who could deliver very funny, subtle comedy. So we got Ben Schwartz, and we got Omar Benson Miller and Josh Brenner. all of these dudes were ready to just devour those scripts and come out with something 10 times better. And that's, but that's what that show needed.
Right.
So.
Right. It seems like also recently there's been a lot more of, big famous Hollywood actors who have transitioned into voice acting, for any animation, for those, big Disney movies, et cetera, et cetera. You've got Angelina Jolie doing the voice of so-and-so, but she's also this big time Hollywood actress, where before they never used to cross that line. Do you find that it's been more open now to anyone can do voice work?
Yeah. Okay. So that happened in movies first, because I guess there were several agents who claimed that they brokered this deal, but there are before I think it was like Ice Age was one of the big breakers of it. Before then, it was just like, let's get a name or two, and then everybody else will be a voiceover actor. And then Ice Age made a better deal and paid everybody more money so they could get publicity rights, and then kind of set a higher bar. And that opened the doors in movies. And then it slowly also creeped into television, especially on the primetime zone, where it's like, we'll pay a little more to get those people to do the thing, to do a lot of the press. So yeah, it happens a lot now. And it's almost required for those higher profile jobs that you have, just like a film, that you have names to carry your thing. Hopefully it's not all names, but it happens.
Yeah. Can we talk about the authenticity of casting for certain characters? Sometimes you'll find that the voice of a male character is actually voiced by a young girl, just because the voice sounds good. Or, you'll find that the role of maybe a diverse person is doing the voice of someone who's not diverse. So can we talk about how important that is to you to cast?
Yeah, it is very important to be mindful of that. And we haven't really we have not done any funny business with ethnicities on characters since I've been working in this. So let's say for the past 10 years, because it is an important thing. And because, if you'll just notice, like the to-do about the voice of Apu and things like that, which used to happen all the time. But really, once you start to think about it and you start to put a spotlight on that, it doesn't serve the community you're serving, as i.e. the audience. It doesn't serve your collaborators, i.e. the other actors. And in the end, because it doesn't serve those people, it doesn't serve your bosses, i.e. the producers, whether they realize it or not. It is a sticky wicket, not because you want to do it or you don't want to do it, but because there are two really big forces in any network doing the casting. It is the creators and the producers and the casting directors and everybody saying, let's make this authentic. Let's make this inclusive. Let's make sure when we're casting someone who's a Lakota Indian, that we get an actor, if we can, who's a Lakota Indian. The only problem is business affairs, who has the job of protecting the company legally, and who has may step in the way and say, yes, but you can't do that because that's job discrimination. Because you can no more say, I want a Lakota Indian actor for this role than say, I want a white assistant next time. Like in the eyes of the law, there's no difference. So I'm not in a network anymore. I kind of do what I want, but I know a lot of my colleagues are still struggling with the fact that what is right and what should be done and what almost everybody wants will get stymied by what is the law and what the position of the lawyers at a network demand.
Right.
So when you're at a network, it always falls on the casting director that you have to serve and get the right thing done by accident without actually saying you're getting the right thing done. And that's a very difficult position to be in.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm assuming that there's a lot of challenges that go with casting voice actors. What are some challenges that you face throughout the years? And I also want to touch on real life casting of cartoons. Is that challenging?
Pardon me, I don't, the real life casting of a cartoons?
So I'll just, so you know what, I asked you two questions and I shouldn't. So I'm assuming that casting voice actors is pretty challenging. So what has been some challenges that you've faced in this industry of voice acting?
Sure. You know what? It doesn't happen anymore, but it used to be a nightmare to try to cast during pilot season,
Oh,
right? Because so many actors were so focused on the pilots, and then holding deals would get in the way all of the time because we don't uh, voiceover. You're only as an actor, you're only working what 4 hours a week at most, right, per project. So you run around and do all these different shows. But any live action series, once you lock down and you can't do anything else. So we would audition people and suddenly they become unavailable. Or we try to audition people and they're holding, so they can't come in. They might not be available. We don't know for 2 weeks. And so you may know who you want and they may be able to do it, but they can't. They can't right now. I think that was one of the biggest problems in voiceover. Also, the other thing is like we don't pay super well. So people who are expecting big paydays because they work in live action, they see scale and they're like, I don't want to do that. Even though I know they're perfect for the role, they can't deign to do that because, frankly, they're just losing money because if they are tied to one of these, they're unavailable every other Tuesday, right? And a TV series doesn't want to hear that. A movie doesn't want to hear that. And I'll work around schedules, but they may be resistant to that, just knowing that.
right, right. So they just announced that Margot Robbie was going to play Barbie and Ryan Gosling was going to be Ken. So, what is your opinion when it comes to real life casting of cartoons and then you use real actors to bring them to life?
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it because it's like I love uh, art that's like a spin-off tribute to other things. It's basically live action casting of cartoons is the Hollywood's version of fan art, right? Because animation creates character, and then they're like, what this character's like, who'd be perfect for that. I think that Ryan Gosling thinks I haven't heard that. That's hilarious. I love it because he's great, and Margot Robbie, I think she's great. So that will be super fun. And sometimes those are done as a spoof, and that's fun to explore. And sometimes those are done like completely like legitimate to the style of the piece. And as long as they don't really betray who the character is, then I think it's wonderful. And I love it.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Two of my favorite actors too. I mean, well, obviously Ryan Gosling because he's Canadian and I'm Canadian, so he had me at the Notebook, is what I say to that. So I'm wondering, you're working on a couple of different other projects with Apple, Netflix, Mattel. Is there anything that you can tell us or give us a sneak peek as to what you're working on and who you're working with?
I can say, because it's about to be released with Netflix, check out Dogs in Space in November. It's dogs and they go to space and it's just adorable. And we cast Haley Joel Osment, Sarah Chalk, Chris Parnell's on it. There's a whole bunch of people I can't talk about. And that's an adorable one. I did start actually working on some of the Barbie projects. So like the Barbie Vlogger, which is on YouTube. We record a few of those a month and put those up. And I thought, those are just wonderful. I can't talk about the Apple stuff, but they're adorable preschool shows. Okay. I can't talk about, I can talk about Warner Brothers. I just started working on, as a voice director, not as casting director, but as voice director on the new Superman series that just got announced, the animated Superman series. And then I had done the second season of DC Superhero Girls, which was also a really wonderful time with an awesome voiceover cast that I can't take credit for because it had been cast before I started, and then I jumped in on the second season.
That's so exciting. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she's big time into animation, and she's going to be excited to watch all of those. But she did watch one thing on Netflix. I think it was LOL Dolls, and one of the dolls that she has, she was so disappointed with the voice that they gave her. And I'm wondering like how much pressure you as a casting director have to kind of make sure that there's these fans who are so, that they've probably created these voices in their head for dolls that they have at home. And then when you hear a story like that, how much pressure do you have as a casting director to get it right?
Yeah, you do, especially for pre-existing properties.
Right.
You do feel like you really want to serve the fans, and that might not be what you are being asked to do. So you have to, it's easy as a casting director to get beaten down by some bad ideas, and just, when whoever's in charge goes, we want this, just to go, fine. But if it's a pre-existing property, you do kind of have to stand up and like put yourself in the fan mindset as much as you can, and go like, and the best you can do as a casting director is, you can't say like, oh, cast that guy. The only tools you have is only bring in people to director who you would be happy with, right? Right. That's what that first screening process is like, I'm going to narrow down the field of all these actors to like my precious children, and I'm fine with any of these precious children. And then the second one is, if it comes to a decision that you're not happy with that decision, the only tool you as a casting director have is to say like, you know what, let me see a few more. Just give me a little more time to see a few more, and I'll do the work. Let me just bring it. Let me try to beat this best option. And those are the only tools you have.
Yeah, and I was just making sure that I had my information right. Talk about fanfare and, not disappointing the fans. There's a huge Batman following, right? And Robert Pattinson is going to be playing the next Batman. And fans went wild when they released that little teaser, which was 10 seconds, and they heard Robert Pattinson speak as Batman. And fans are like, oh my goodness, he's going to be the best Batman ever, just because he said 2 words. So they don't even know if he's going to be a great Batman, but just the way he spoke, they were like, oh, he's so worthy of Batman. They nailed it with his voice.
Yeah. Thank goodness it didn't go the other way, right?
Because it could have ruined the entire, it could have ruined the entire expectation of the movie, and people would already be like, obviously bringing him down and saying that he wasn't a good Batman. But the fact that he said those 2 words, people now are hooked, and they can't wait for the release of Batman starring Robert Pattinson. So when you're walking around and going about your day, whenever you speak with people, are you kind of thinking in your mind, oh, this person can possibly be the character I'm trying to cast?
99.9% of the time, no.
Because I was expecting you to say yes.
No, because I think my work brain turns on and off, and we are, I think, in Hollywood, and this is sheerly because there are a lot of actors, and there are a lot of actors trying hard, that allows myself and other producers, creative types, we can all kind of be lazy and sit back and wait for people to exhibit their excellence. Right? Because there are so many people willing and ready to show their excellence, as opposed to if you think of a 1930s movie where someone's like, found in a cafe and you're going to be a star. It doesn't happen anyway, because there's a ton of stars right over there. Why do I need to find one at a cafe? So, and why do I need to think about work when I'm not thinking about work? So maybe it's just like my self-preservation kind of turns off that part of the brain. So like, I'm listening to your voice, I'm not listening to your voice, I'm listening to your voice. With rare exception, I'll hear some people, and I won't do anything about it, because God knows, who knows if they can act. But every once in a while I hear a voice and I'm like, oh, that's an awesome voice. But most of the time it stops at that, because like, I don't know if they can tell the truth on command.
Yeah, right. So when an actor does come in and has a recording session with you, what's that process like? And what's it like being in a recording studio or booth with you?
Oh, sure. It's different now because I haven't been in a recording studio in 60 months. I do it just like this. So, but when we get back to it, the actor would show up and we'd talk about the character some. I'd answer any questions. And then we would take something for an audition. We'd take something a scene at a time. We'd read it together like a scene. I would give notes and we'd read it again 2 or 3 more times. You know, hopefully if I have one of the show EPs there, they'll give notes too. And we'll just do it till it's right or till it's hopeless. And then I get to edit it. So I get rid of all the garbage and only save the gold. And that's what we do.
Mm. And are you the sole decision maker?
I'm not a decision maker. I'm the narrow down filter. Decisions are made by the network or studio that's producing the thing in league with the executive producer or show creator that they've hired to make the show, right? The final decision weighs on their shoulders. I can give as much sage wisdom as possible. I can narrow the field down as much as they'll accept. But in the end, it's not me, it's them.
It's them. So in your work experience and in your experience and being a veteran in voice acting, what kind of insight or maybe what kind of recommendations would you give to actors who are tuning in right now so that you can encourage them to keep working and, you know, keep nailing their auditions?
Yeah, every audition's an opportunity to exhibit your skill and to improve it, right? And even if you're not right for that thing, if you were funny or you were true, I'll remember it for something else, right? So always just put like your good work forward, and you go and you pay money in places to go showcase yourself, to do work, to get seen, right?
Right.
I'm giving you that opportunity to show me your work for free, right? In the audition. So put that much energy into it and show whether it's awesome or not, show me it's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you do have, for the people who send self-tapes, you have an excellent opportunity to kind of spiral in and go a little insane, in that you can record a thing and listen to it and adjust it and improve it as many times as you want.
Right.
Even to a point beyond its freshness, till it's died, so long as you save the old one, right? So you could do something 15 times, 20 times, and then send number 6. That's fine if 6 was the best one, right? Just work on it, see what comes out. And if you don't want to do that, if you don't love it, you don't love it. And so that's a bigger question to start asking yourself, is just like, personally, I always tell the joke that when I got out of theater school and I just didn't want to be an actor, I was fine calling myself an actor. I just didn't like auditioning, rehearsing, or performing anymore. So, like, do you still like those things? If you do, great. Do it with all your energy. If you don't, great. Go do something else.
Go do something else, right? So you didn't like the audition process, but you liked the audition process of discovering the talent. You didn't want to be the talent, you wanted to discover them.
Yes. Because I love watching actors. I love watching them succeed. I love watching them try hard. I love watching the process. I love getting the hints of what I'm seeing. I just didn't want to do it.
Right. Right. Okay. So now it's come to the point of our interview where I'm going to ask you some questions. You don't have to put much thought into it. It's just getting to know Jean Vassilaros. I don't want to mistake your last name because it's such a beautiful Greek name. So Jean, we want to know, what is the last thing you streamed or movie you watched?
Oh, I just watched James Bond.
Oh, yes. Daniel Craig. What did you think?
Yeah, it's a very fitting end. It was a very fitting end. I won't give anything away to people, but Anna was awesome. I think a lot of that was really good, and there were some good heartbreaks in it.
Yeah, very emotional, I found, for a Bond movie, but a great way to say goodbye to Daniel Craig, right?
Right.
Okay. Favorite movie and why?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with The City of Lost Children, and I think it's just like every frame of picture style, beautifully crafted piece of melancholy art.
Okay. You're working on so many projects that you can't really talk about, but you do work with a lot of actors. And I'm wondering, in your eyes, who's probably the most underrated actor and why?
Wow, underrated actor.
Yep.
You know, not underrated, but I have to say, like when I watched Nine Perfect Strangers, there were so many good performances in that. But I'll just throw a shout out to like Michael Shannon.
Oh,
Just
yes.
you will notice that like you know why he got hired for every role, and you know he has superseded the expectations of every time he's hired, because it's very easy for a guy like that who is such an imposing figure to just be hired for the figure and then be this like big scary looking imposing guy, but he goes beyond that every single time.
Hmm. Now, I know you said you didn't like acting, but if you could cast yourself in a movie or series, even perhaps some animations that you have been responsible for, what would it be and what character would you be?
Dead body on CSI.
Ah! Do you die in the beginning or in the end?
I think the beginning. Yeah, down at the beginning, I get one shot in the trunk, and then I can go hang out at the craft services table for the rest of the day.
You know, you said that it was as if you knew I was going to ask you that question. You had the answer prepared so fast. Okay. And lastly, your guilty pleasure.
Yeah, uh, Walking Dead, because that's the only soap opera I watch, and because it's a soap opera, and so it's a guilty pleasure. Whereas like you have to suspend all disbelief on like previous seasons and this and that. And, like who knows? All you're there for is the who's gonna die. Who's gonna die is a very like it's a low hanging fruit, but I love it. So yeah, The Walking Dead.
Walking Dead. All right. And so I'm wondering, what are you looking forward to when, the pandemic is lifted and we can start going back to in-person auditions? What are you most looking forward to?
Ensemble records. We used to do those before the recent troubles. In that we used to be able to put six actors in a booth, and they used to record together like it was a read through for a play or whatnot. And then you could change this and change that. And you knew it was all going to work out together. It's just taken so much longer and it's become so much less organic, recording everybody one at a time. It's a heartbreak. So I really hope that we can get back to a world that's normal. Everybody, please get vaccinated, and then just go and do our work the way it was intended to do again.
Yes, here, here. And at that note, we are going to end this amazing interview with Jean Vassilaros. I love saying your last name. Thank you so much with all your insight and your knowledge and helping actors around the world become better voice actors. I thank you very much for being a part of the Working Actor. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.